Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/EntitledPeople Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My half-sister is demanding to work for my family business. After that, am I the jerk for letting my daughter cry instead of fetching her tablet? And after that, should I make my sister-in-law pay above average rent for one bedroom? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to pay above average rent. Don't even get me started on landlords. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My half-sister is demanding to work for my family business. My mom passed when I was 4. I have 2 older brothers who were 6 and 7 when she passed. Our dad remarried just after my 9th birthday and had 2 kids with his second wife. My brothers and I are 28, 30, and 31 now, and my half-sister recently turned 15. My brothers and I work with our mom's parents. She set up a restaurant with them before she had us, and our grandparents have told us we'll be the owners eventually. As it is, we make decisions like owners. My half-sister is obsessed with being a chef. She watches all the cooking shows and wants to be famous. Recently, she started asking if she can work at the restaurant and start to get to know the family business. She said she'd love to take over as head chef one day, and her mom could be head waitress. My brothers told her she was getting way too carried away, but she got all excited. She ended up talking to our dad about working for us. He said he was okay with it as long as we were. We're not. When it comes down to it, this is a business our mom started with her parents for us to take over someday, for our family, and none of us believe she would want our dad's second wife or our half-siblings who are nothing to her working there and taking such a huge place in it. We know our grandparents aren't comfortable with it either. I'm the most gentle out of us 3, so I told her she couldn't work for us. I encouraged her to find somewhere else to work instead. She asked me why, and I told her it was a decision made by those of us who owned and ran the business. She asked me how it could be a family business if we don't allow family to work there, then said how her mom should have been asked a long time ago. I told her that wouldn't make sense since her mom isn't related to my grandparents, the owners, and that ultimately it's my mom's legacy for her kids and how we're trying to honor that. She said it was dumb and forget how my mom would feel when she can't even speak about it. My dad and his wife are so upset we turned her down. They said she is our family, and that should be what matters. It also brought some bitterness up about dad's wife not being offered a place at the restaurant years ago. Seems there's been some weirdness because dad had worked alongside mom and my grandparents for a while when they were first married. Am I the jerk? ETA. A lot of it revolves around money and legalities. When my dad got married, his wife approached my grandparents and told them she wanted to adopt me and my brothers, and how she and my dad wanted her to be the one to take control of any money that was meant to go to us, including savings my mom left my grandparents in control of. She told them she was going to be our mom now, and that she would be taking over finances for the family, that she needed to know everything we had and wanted access to it. When my brothers and I said no to being adopted, she and dad approached my grandparents about having a conversation with us, and brought up the fact that they hadn't done any of the other stuff asked. She told them she was not comfortable with our photo being in the restaurant and said they needed to take it down. It was a photo of us with our mom and grandparents, because they were the parents now. The tone was set from there, and I suspect they must have asked to work in the business with the clear resentment they have that they weren't employed there a long time ago. Can't confirm it, but it was clearly expected my grandparents would ask dad and his wife to work there. Not the jerk. Your grandparents are the owners. You have no say. If she wants to be a chef, great. Your dad and stepmom should help her. McDonald's is a good place to start for her. And maybe culinary school first, if she wants to become a famous chef, unless she's Gordon Ramsay in disguise. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. She's family, but not to your grandparents on your mom's side. That makes sense. Very entitled, the mom and the daughter are. Neither one of them deserve to work there, especially after disregarding and disrespecting your late mom's feelings and legacy. I'd ban them from the place for life. No one is owed anything. Sis feels this is something she's entitled to, and next thing you know, she wants her stake in it. This isn't her family's business, and neither she or her mother belong working there in any capacity whatsoever. Grandparents and siblings all agree, case closed. I can somewhat see why your half-sister is upset, but also not because of the entitlement of her, and more so her mom is clearly strong. OP, the fact that your maternal grandparents aren't comfortable could be significant on a number of levels. I may be grasping at some straws here, but I'm willing to bet that your stepmom has tried to throw her weight around with the family business before now. It sounds like your dad has no ownership of and little involvement since your mom passed, so he can buzz off trying to tell you or your brothers and his late wife's parents what to do with your restaurant and her legacy. In response to another comment, the stepmom and half-sister don't want to simply work at the restaurant. It sounds like they want to run the show. The sis is a teenager. Where do you think she gets all the aggro and defensiveness about her mom not being involved years ago? It's likely been taught to her by her mom. Not the jerk. Stick with your instincts and dodge these 2 bullets and honor your mom's wishes. Well, what do you think? Should OP go ahead and hire his sister to work at the restaurant or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely not. The entitlement in this one is off the charts.
Am I the jerk for letting my daughter cry instead of fetching her tablet? Context. 6 years ago, my wife was laid off. She struggled to find a job in the following months, and we couldn't afford raising the kids, 2 boys and 1 girl, with my salary. An old client offered me a well-paying job overseas, so I took it. Last month, I came back after I agreed with the company to work from home, and they made the legal arrangements for it. When I was overseas, I'd talk to them every day and visit once a year. Whenever I was with them, I could notice that my wife was spoiling our daughter. I'd talk to her about it, but she'd tell me she knows what she's doing and that she's the one raising her every day, and that there's no harm in treating her like a princess. Our daughter is now 9, and while she's still our daughter and will always be, she's not exclusively that, and will need to start relying on herself more. When I came back, I found out that my wife has been doing her homework. My teenagers told me that my mom bought their sister 3 iPads that she smashed when having tantrums in the last year and bought her a new one 2 months ago. If our daughter asks for something, she will not stop crying until we get it for her. She'd literally be sitting on the couch and start screaming, "Water!" until someone brings it to her. If she forgot her tablet upstairs, she'll order her brothers to go get it for her, and if they refuse, she'll start crying. Yesterday, she tried doing the same. I ordered my boys to stay still, and I told her to go fetch it herself. She kept crying for 15 minutes. I was hugging her all the time and comforting her. When she stopped, I told her that she still has to go get it herself, but I will follow her if she wants. She was still annoyed, but replied saying that she's a big girl and can fetch it by herself. When my wife came back from an errand, I told her what happened. Instead of supporting me, she was angry at me for letting her cry and told me that I was a jerk who preferred to let his daughter cry for 15 minutes instead of taking 30 seconds to help her. I didn't expect that reaction from her. I told her that she's ruining our daughter, and if we keep treating her like that, we will raise a pathetic person who can't rely on themselves for the simplest thing. I told her that she needs to stop doing her homework, and instead, we should guide her to figure out the answers by herself. And we should also make her do the chores her brothers did when they were her age. She replied that I was welcome to keep being a jerk to our daughter, but she'll keep treating her nicely. She warned me to not cry or feel guilty when my daughter grows up and wants nothing to do with me. The last thing I want is for my daughter to despise me, but at the same time, I want her to grow up to be a strong, independent woman. We aren't going to be with her for the rest of her life, and even if we were, it's important for every adult to be able to fend for themselves. Not the jerk, but there needs to be some serious intervention here. You had to hold and comfort her while she cried? I can bet you that she doesn't do this nonsense at school. You and your wife need to stop this immediately. Hold her and comfort her while she cried because she couldn't be bothered to go upstairs to retrieve her iPad at 9 years old? Are you serious? This girl needs a real shift in reality. OP needs to stop with that immediately, although he is not the jerk as he understands just how bad it is and has the right idea. OP's wife is a jerk though. She sure doesn't mind treating her daughter better than the boys, as if that's not going to push them away, like she called out OP on the way he wants to treat his daughter. If you can, OP, please intervene. Get help, something. I honestly don't have any advice on what to do here, other than to encourage your daughter to do things for herself and not replace things once they're broken, and teach her about actual real life. But that girl is going to struggle in adulthood and future relationships if this continues. Look, it sounds stupid, but this is actually good parenting. Kids have tantrums and should learn to self-soothe, especially if a parent is teaching them how. Tantrums will stop by age 4. This girl never had that, so he needs to teach her how to self-soothe while not giving in.
Hey Reddit boy, when you were little and threw tantrums, did your parents teach you how to self-soothe?
Yeah, with dad's belt and mom's paddle. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
No wonder there's so many Karens in the wild.
Should I make my sister-in-law pay above average rent for one bedroom? I'm 100% being petty here, but curious if I'm actually wrong. Most of my husband's family think I'm being childish and need to let the past go, as my sister-in-law can't afford this, but her behavior towards us in the past makes me feel that this is warranted. 2 years ago, my house burnt to the ground after being struck by lightning. Thankfully, it was during the day, so our kids were at school and my husband and I were at work. We lost everything, but we were safe. It took almost 11 months for the insurance to pay out. The insurance covered 1 month worth of hotel stays, but after that, we were made to fend for ourselves, and the only option we had was to move in with my sister-in-law. She tells us we can have her spare room and her office space since she used neither of the rooms, and her stipulations were that we needed to purchase all of our own food and pay her $100 a week. By week 3, all of that changed. She then decides that we need to pay her $250 a week, and we can only use one room. So all 5 of us were crammed into the smallest room she had, which was the size of a glorified closet space and didn't even fit a twin bed and a small dresser, so we lived out of trash bags and slept on the floor for close to $1,000 a month some months, and still had to purchase all of our own food, despite her claiming my kids on her food stamps. She also had no bills outside of her land tax, $450 a year, electric and heating oil, which she hardly ever filled. So we were essentially paying her so that she could do leisure activities. It was the worst 8 months of my life. 3 months ago, my grandmother decided that she wanted to go to assisted living after a fall and transferred the deed of her house to me and basically said it was mine now. It's a 5-bedroom farmhouse. My boys insist on sharing a room, so we have 2 extra bedrooms. Well, my sister-in-law lost her house last month due to not paying her land tax for several years and asked if her and her stepdaughter could stay with us until they have enough money to move down south. I said sure, 1 bedroom, $800 a month, and you have to buy and cook all of your own food separately because my daughter is vegan. She looked at me like I had 10 heads and said that she and her stepdaughter should not be made to share a room when there are 2 extra bedrooms, and stated that she cannot afford a rent of $800 a month while purchasing all of her own food on top of it. I said, neither could we, but we managed to cram 5 people into a glorified closet space while you were getting $1,000 and food stamps. Take it or leave it. She decided to leave. Again, I am being told that I'm childish. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It's $250 a month for the room and $750 a month for you having to see her stupid face every day. You're giving her an 80% discount on the rent because she's family. Wow, I was really going the other way when I read the title, but yeah, you're not the jerk. You simply treated your sister-in-law how she treated you, not worse and not better. If she thinks it's unfair, then it shows that she knew what she did was wrong first. Forget anybody who says that you should accommodate. Best thing ever that she leave. Enjoy your farmhouse. OP would still be treating her better. Sister-in-law's problem is of her own making. Took years to create, and she could have avoided the whole thing if she used some of the rent OP gave her for taxes. OP lost everything from a fire that she had no part in making and couldn't have predicted. She had fire insurance. What else could she have done? Sister-in-law was a jerk when OP's family had an emergency. Childish and petty? Oh yeah, but also not the jerk. Tell your sister-in-law and everyone else that you reap what you sow. In my opinion, you're being extremely generous in requesting that she pay $200 less than what you paid for one room. I'd argue that it's neither childish nor petty. People who use the misfortune of others for their own gain are never going to grasp the magnitude of what they've done until they've been forced to make similar choices. In this case, I'd wager the sister-in-law still won't understand, but trying to make her understand is a reasonable, responsible thing to do. Am I the jerk for telling my son that he'll have to share his late mom's business with his stepmom and siblings? I, 48 male, have a 19-year-old son who was the product of my first marriage. When my son was 9, my late wife passed. When we were both 25, she had used 80% of her inheritance to buy a gas station. She quit her job and for 5 years focused on the gas station. The first few years were rough, and we needed the money I made from my job as a waiter to supplement our lifestyle. In the 2 years before she passed, I became involved in the day-to-day operations. In her will, the gas station was left entirely to me. However, she indicated that she hoped I could teach my son about the business because while some families pass down homes, this was her legacy. I have since remarried to my wife, 42 female. She has a 15-year-old son from a previous relationship who I consider my own. The business is smooth enough that we can mostly be absentee owners. My wife, however, has been working there for all day, every Saturday for a while now. She often brings my stepson to work. Regretfully, I was too wrapped up with my life's events to spend much time teaching my son about the business. I recently have become sick, and my wife has constantly brought up my will, and so has my older son. We've had many fights where she has stormed out and not come back for hours when I told her that my late wife wanted her son to get it eventually. Because the medication I take gives me feelings of anxiety and depression, it's extra painful when my wife will not want to talk to me because she's upset. She said that it was not fair to my stepson that I tell him I consider him my son, yet I would not be leaving part ownership of the business, our greatest marital asset and legacy, to him. I had originally set up my will so all of my assets outside the business would go to my wife, and then she'd get 10% of the station. My other assets would give her around half my estate, and the business stake was just in case she needed more financial stability. My stepson gets a trust, but the remaining 90% would go to my son. But I feel torn because I really do not know what is right anymore. After a heart-to-heart, I changed my will so that my wife, stepson, and my son would each have 1/3 of the business. The rest of my will remained the same. When my son got home from college and I decided to take him out so we could be alone, I broke the news to him gently that he would have to split the business equally with his stepmother and stepbrother. He was silent for a long time. He told me he believed his stepmom would end up trying to force a sale with his stepbrother eventually. He then said this didn't come as a shock to him, but he was sure his late mother would have been surprised and told me to think on that. Then he walked out, and he has avoided me since. Am I the jerk for doing what I've done? I already see the tension in the house, and I feel like I always come home and walk into the aftermath of an argument between him and his stepmom. You're the jerk. You're disrespecting your late wife's wishes and letting your current wife ruin the relationship with your son. He cares more about how his wife feels than his own son. It's obvious this is how it's been for a while since the son already guessed his dad would do him out of his mom's business. As he did state, his mental issues have been getting worse, to which I think is 100% on his new wife, and I think he was doing it to make everyone happy, whilst ignoring his son and his late wife's wishes. I could be wrong though. You're the jerk. This station was purchased with your son's mother's inheritance. You know that your first wife wanted the business to go to her son. You are allowing your current wife to bully you into her demands. She only works on Saturday, so it isn't as though she has poured her life into ensuring the business is successful. However, it sounds as though your first wife did. By splitting it into thirds, you're doing over your son. Your stepson and wife will have the majority ownership together, not to mention, why are you giving stepson an equal share as your son? It isn't as though this is just some random piece of property. The strong financial and historical ties to your son's mother make this an easy and clear answer. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for changing his will or not? Please let us know.
My heart always breaks in these stories when someone picks their new spouse over their kid.
Don't stop painting the mural? Sure thing, boss. For the last 3 years, I've worked as a muralist for a mural company. It's hard work, but also rewarding, as I was beautifying public spaces. I had a good boss. He was a skilled painter who worked alongside us on big projects, in addition to providing us with plenty of financial incentives and encouragements. Unfortunately, he retired last year and gave full control of the company to his business partner. It immediately became a crap show. The business partner controlled the administration side of the company. He was not a painter and didn't understand the work it took. He would overbook clients and overpromise on completion dates. He never offered us incentives and would only berate us for not getting jobs done quick enough. We tried to tell him that the old boss had always encouraged us to take our time and deliver the best mural, as the company's reputation rested on the quality of our work. We also tried to explain that as artists, we want to be proud of the work that we put out there. He brushed it off with, "You're paid to finish jobs, just get it done." This was incredibly demoralizing, and after 2 months of churning out rushed work, we were burnt out. One of our 4 muralists quit. The final straw came 3 months later. Our company won a huge bid to paint the side of a 5-story tall building using my design. I told the boss that it would take us 5 weeks to complete. However, a week before the project was due to start, he told us that we had 3 weeks. We protested, citing that we're down 1 muralist, safety issues, weather changes, and the complexity of the design. He, of course, told us that the contract had been signed and brushed off our concerns. He did, however, offer us financial incentives for overtime work this time, And knowing that there was nothing we could do, we accepted it. I simplified the design and we planned to stay late. The weather got bad as predicted. There were a few days of rain where we barely got work done. We fell behind and told the boss that he had to get us an extension. Our client was nice enough to grant another week, but our boss was upset. He would show up to the job site regularly just to rush us. On the third week, we were working when a light drizzle started. We were waiting in our cars, hoping that it would pass when the boss showed up. The moment he saw us, he started accusing us of being lazy. To quote, "This is why we're falling behind." One of my coworkers said through gritted teeth, "Can't you see it's raining?" But before we could explain why we couldn't paint in the rain, the boss yelled, "If you're scared of a little drizzle, you shouldn't be a muralist. Get back to work." My coworker shot me a look, and I knew immediately the malicious compliance was on. The three of us got back on the scaffolding and began working. The boss smugly said, "See, that wasn't so hard," and drove off. We kept our smiles to ourselves. When the boss returned that afternoon, he was horrified. The rain had washed the wet paint down the building, leaving paint streaks dripping onto the rest of the mural. Basically, the whole mural, 3 weeks worth of work, was ruined. We noticed him staring slack-jawed, but we just kept painting. Then he called us down and lost it on us. When asked, "What were you guys thinking?" my coworker replied, "Well, you were the one who told us to do it." My boss' face turned beet red. Then he asked, "Well, how are we going to fix this?" My coworker simply replied, "You mean, how are you going to fix it? We've decided to all quit." And indeed, we had while we were working in that rain. We packed up our tools as the boss went from yelling to begging to yelling again. We just ignored him. That was the last day that we were on site. I felt so relieved the moment I got home. The aftermath. I got a call a week later from my old boss. I was ready to tell him that I won't come back to work, but it turned out that he just wanted to check in on me. He apologized for what happened. He also told me that my new boss lost the contract and had to hand out the money to repaint the whole wall blank again so that another muralist can take over. The company is floundering now. The new boss can't find anyone to replace us, and he probably never will. What he didn't realize was that finding even one good muralist willing to work for a company is difficult, let alone a team. Most muralists are more than happy to self-employ. More importantly, not many people have the skills and patience, as well as physical abilities to create beautiful, large-scale artworks from great heights. I give it another few months before the company completely shuts down. My coworkers and I still keep in touch. They got a few mural projects in the work from clients that they knew during their time with the company. I help out now and then, and I'm still pretty burnt from the experience, so I think I'll look for other jobs for now. You want everything the same color? Give me a day or two. Way back when I lived in a student dormitory in a city in the Netherlands, this wasn't a US-style dorm. Each student had their own room, but we shared a shower, a toilet, and a kitchen. Between 16 people. Oh, joyful days. Anyhow, by the time I entered the flat, it was already 30 years old and falling to bits. So the student housing department decided to renovate the building, basically stripping it. We all got replacement rooms and a sum of money to buzz off without making a fuss. So far, so good. Cue my neighbor's exit. By contract, we had to leave the room as we found it. That meant seeing to it that all the power plugs worked and filling up all the holes you'd made from hanging posters and lamps on the wall. It had become something of a tradition to perform the latter task using toothpaste. It was mainly laziness, since proper toothpaste is a good deal more expensive than wall filler. Anywho, it's what most of us did. Except that my neighbor brushed her teeth with Parodontax, which uses a sort of off-pink, adobe-ish color of paste, and stupidly used said brand to fill the holes in her wall. So come inspection time, the holes she had filled with it on a white wall stuck out like sore thumbs. After about a week, she received a letter stating that she needed to make sure the walls were uniformly the same color, or face a 1,000 guilder, about 800 euros in today's money, fine, plus the loss of her 300 guilder deposit, within 3 days. This is in spite of the fact that the rooms would be demolished shortly after, and that the student housing department was very lax when they actually had to do any repairs. After about 3 minutes of indignation, we threw together enough funds to visit the DIY store, armed with a tube of Parodontax toothpaste, had a can of paint mixed with exactly that color, returned and repainted the entire room, everything in it, in solid Parodontax pink. When the inspector showed up a week later, he just stood there flabbergasted while my neighbor shoved his own letter in his face. The relevant sentence about uniformity indicated in yellow marker. She never heard anything about it again. Karen loses it in my video game store. I work at a family-owned video game store in a big shopping strip at the beach. We're 80% retro stuff, but we always take modern games and consoles because they move quick, especially these days. I'm working my Tuesday opening shift, going as slow as weekday mornings usually do, when one of my favorite regulars, an old gentleman that loves talking movies with me, and a woman, who I'll be referring to as Country Karen due to her accent, come into the store within a minute or so of each other. I say hi to the regular. Country Karen comes to the counter. I'll tell him I'll be back once I'm done. Regular goes to check out our Blu-ray trades from the weekend. Country Karen starts to explain she bought 2 Switch lights for her nephews, not realizing they already had a regular Switch in their house. Says the kids lost the receipt, entirely her own fault for giving it to the kids, so she can't return it and wants to know what I can do for a cash trade-in. She seems a little frazzled, but I chalk it up to stress and annoyance at her situation, since she explains she just came in from being told no at Target. I take the Switch Lite and take it out of the box. It's about as factory new as it gets, with only a small tear on the box and a few kid-sized fingerprints on the screen I can wipe off. She says she just wants as much money back as she can at this point. I pull up the trade sheet to double-check our trade rates. A Switch Lite retails for $200. We normally sell used for $180 and give $100 store credit or $80 cash. Since this Switch Lite is basically factory new with the box, I decide to give her a bit of a deal. Me: well, normally Switch Lites only trade for $80 cash, but I can do $110 for this because it's a popular color and it's in really good condition with a box. Karen:
What? That's so low. GameStop has a promotion and will give me $140 for it. Can't you do any better?
Normally, we try to beat GameStop's everything by at least 15%, but being corporate with more employees and less stock per store, they can get specials and promotions done we can't. Plus, we can only match them on trade value for newer consoles, due to the little profit we turn taking them at GameStop's prices. I explain this to Country Karen, and she goes from frazzled and a little impatient to, well, a Country Karen.
Wow, I thought you guys would be better than GameStop since you're a small business, but if you're going to nickel and dime me, I'll just go to them from now on.
I audibly scoff at the woman's rudeness and tell her good luck. Perk of working family-owned, I don't have to lie down and take crap behavior. She gives me a nasty look, takes her Switch Lite back, and leaves the store. There's a couple in line behind her with a bag or two of game trades each by this point, so once she's gone, I start helping them. Regular brings up a few of our movie trades. All 4 of us start talking movies while I get the games done. Mornings on weekdays usually aren't too bad, but for some reason I had a huge line of nothing but boxes of trade-ins per person come in while I was helping the first 2 guys out, and I was the only employee in the store that day. I finished the second person's trade and excuse myself from the movie talk to focus on powering through the new line of people. I'm about halfway done with the second box of absolute goldmine titles, SNES and Nintendo 64 games, when Country Karen returns looking very unhappy. I put on my best customer service smile and say, "Welcome back." She ignores me, cuts past the rest of the line. Karen:
I need to trade this now. I have to pick my nephews up from daycare and need the gas money. GameStop said their promotion is over.
Me: sorry to hear that, but I've got other customers I'm helping right now. You'll have to get in line.
I said I need to trade this now. They're out soon, and all this running around is going to make me late as it is.
I look at gentleman I'm helping, who shrugs and says he doesn't mind, then at the other 4 people in line with boxes or bags of trades in hand, patiently waiting their turns. The next person in line is watching and giving Country Karen the audacity of this jerk face I've ever seen. Since it's one item and normally it only takes a minute, I tell Country Karen, fine, I'll ring her through quick. I suspend the current trade, take the light, double check it, then add it into the system and ask Country Karen for her ID, which she loudly sighs about and takes a minute digging through her purse. Next guy in line definitely isn't happy with her attitude, makes a comment to the woman he's with that Country Karen and I can't make out. Karen finally finds her ID and hands it over. I enter her info into our customer database, up the trade of the Switch Lite to 110, and tell her the total. Much to my surprise, she balks as if I've just really upset her and indignantly states,
You told me $139.99 earlier. I want the money you said I'd get the first time I came in here.
Me, no ma'am, I said 110 because it's…
No, you told me $139.99. I want the money you said I'd get the first time, or there's going to be an issue.
That's BS, since every single trade in our store rounds to a whole dollar amount. But Country Karen keeps insisting I told her what I'm assuming was the GameStop promotional trade price. At this point, both I and the next guy in line are done with Country Karen. He loudly sighs and says, "Come on, man." But Country Karen either can't hear him or doesn't care. I, on the other hand, give Country Karen another winning service smile. "Sure, your trade will be $80 cash then." I can see the few brain cells left in Country Karen's wino head trying to process how the value has gone down instead of up.
That's less. I want the money.
At this point, she's yelling in the store, so I use my 8+ years of singing bass in church chorus to talk over her without sounding like I'm yelling back. Me, I told you normally Switch Lites sell for $80 cash, but that I'd cut you a deal for $110. If you want the amount I told you the first time, that's $80. My regular and one of the first two trades are still near the till, and they both pipe up to support me and say I did, in fact, give her those numbers. Country Karen, red in the face and realizing her mistake, starts to backpedal.
God, fine. Just give me the $110 so I can leave already.
Me, no ma'am, you were very firm about wanting the first amount, so it'll be $80 cash for the trade. Country Karen looks like she's about to explode before she checks the time on her phone and deflates.
Just give me the money.
Absolutely. I ring out her transaction for $80, make her sign the receipt saying she agrees to the trade, then loudly count out $80 cash and 20s for her, which she snatches off the counter and storms out of the store with, while the next guy in line is bent over the box of games in his arms, laughing his butt off.
Huge shout out to our newest official channel member, Guttapunk420. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It really means the world to Reddit Boy and I. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.